The first console I had was a PS2, but I was about 5 at the time, so while I played Jak and Daxter, Ratchet and Clank, and Kingdom Hearts, I was a bit too young to be into games like Devil May Cry. Fast forward to DMC4 on the Xbox 360. It was my entry into the series, and later on it got me interested in its predecessors. I may not have grown up with these games, but I ended up playing 3, 4, and especially 5 so much that they became a part of my life. So here I'd like to go through the series and talk about it. I'm not an expert on any of these games, even 5, but I just enjoy them enough to want to talk about them. So don't look to me for anything beyond a passionate fan. Devil May Cry started with the development of Resident Evil 4, which went through multiple iterations before release. One of those iterations involved a lot more melee combat, and a quirk with the physics engine allowed testers to be able to air juggle zombies. Luckily, the devs realized that this was a bit too crazy for a Resident Evil game, but instead of just scrapping it, they thought that this had some potential, and so they just started developing this as its own game. This would eventually become Devil May Cry, the game that accidentally invented an entire subgenre of action game. Before Bayonetta, 2B, and Raiden could play hopscotch with missiles, DMC1 had to walk, and it's impossible for me to play this game and not constantly look for things that would eventually evolve into mechanics and constants in the later entries. Now that we're all caught up, I'm not going to go mission by mission with this game. You can still see the DNA of Resident Evil in this game, and that includes in its mission design, which mostly amounts to mission start, find a weird fucking door, go look for something to open it, fight some enemies, grab the thing, put it on the door, and end the mission. It's not every mission, but it is a lot of the game. So instead, I'll focus on certain things as I go. First, let's get into the story. A long time ago, there was a demon named Sparta who decided to save mankind from his fellow demons. Afterward, he married a woman named Ava, who would give birth to twin boys, Dante and Virgil. Not that one. Kinda, but no. Who? Yeah, them! The mother is killed in an attack orchestrated by the king of the underworld, Mundus, and Dante and Virgil were separated. Afterwards, Dante grew up to become a demon hunter.
Devil May Cry. Sorry, we closed at 9. Again, no password.
Why do you care about keeping your business a secret when you have half the game's enemy roster beheaded and nailed to your wall?
Whoa, slow down, babe.
You're the man who lost a mother and a brother to evil 20 years ago. The son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta, Mr. Dante.
Well, the way I figure it, in this business a lot of you are kind comes around. And if I kill each one that comes, eventually I should hit the jackpot sooner or later.
In that case, you should be used to this sort of thing.
Are you really the son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta? Didn't your daddy teach you how to use a sword?
Sword. Time to go to work, guys.
I'm not your enemy. My name is Trish. I came here to seek your help, to put an end to the underworld.
What?
Okay, look. Yes, I know about the Trish thing, but I'm not touching that shit. I'm not touching it in a house. I'm not touching it with a mouse. I'm not touching that shit, Sam I Am. I'm not touching that shit with a fox, and I don't care how much Dante wants to touch his mom's butt. Anyway, Mundus is opening a hellgate on Malay Island, and we gotta go kill him. There's a lot of things in this game that harken back to its ties with the Resident Evil series, but none more blatantly than the castle on Malay and how we interact with it. Beyond weird fucking doors, the castle itself fits in the RE universe in its design, atmosphere, and the way we can examine parts of the environment for insight. Some people still say that DMC1 is their favorite in the series, and I have to imagine the environments are a huge factor in that. It's very different from anything else in the series, and at times it's pretty impressive. It's not just the castle either. We board the Speedwell and shoot an albatross, fight in a coliseum, and go to hell, of course. In these first few missions, we're introduced to the marionettes, the starter enemies of the game. So DMC1 has a weird quirk where it can't spawn multiple enemy types for an encounter. It can spawn variants of that enemy in the same room, though. I don't know if this was an issue with memory or maybe just a weird limitation of the engine, but it must have been a real challenge for the enemy designers who now had to find a way to make a single kind of enemy worthy of an encounter. You do get enemy types who simply spawn in hordes, but some of the other types are very dangerous and have a surprising number of different attacks and behavior for a game this old. The marionettes and their variants, the Bloody Marys and the fetishes, are a good cadre of basic enemies for the game that you'll see until the end. Now you might be wondering why I haven't talked about the sword we're using yet. Well, we won't have it for much longer. Now we'll talk about the sword. So you have a normal combo and something I don't think I've seen in another character action game, 2 delayed combos separated by how long the delay is. A short delay gives you this 5-hit combo that does the most damage and has a wider reach, making it great for crowd control. A longer delay gives you million stabs, which doesn't do as much damage, but it still has value in its longer reach and ability to lock a single enemy down for longer. Dante also draws power from some of the weapons he uses in this game. In Alistair's case, is the first time we can use Devil Trigger. Yeah, we just have it now. No tutorial message or nothing. You also have unique attacks while in DT, which in the case of Alistair are probably too good. In the same mission, we also get the shotgun. So I'm going to talk about most of the guns here now. The shotgun is the best all-around gun in the game. The pistols have situational uses, and the grenade launcher can do a lot of damage, but I just never liked how much it limited movement. The shotgun knocks enemies back, does huge damage, and allows for the same mobility as the pistols. There's also the Nightmare B, a gun that uses DT to shoot powerful energy blasts, in theory. So let's learn about an economics term called opportunity cost. If you have 2 options, what is the estimated difference in revenue of using one option against the other? In the case of the Nightmare B, we are calculating damage differences between using the Nightmare B against using DT. And Nightmare B is in the red every time. Not to mention the stagger immunity, air raid, and that tiny health regen. There's just no reason to use this gun as the opportunity cost is far too high. Oh, and don't go and use this video as a reference in your economics term paper. Your professor will look up the reference, they'll see this video, and then they will judge you. The annoying screaming things are synth scythes, or maybe synth scissors. Look, there's barely any difference between the two. The synth scissors do have an instant kill trick, but I couldn't pull it off, and it doesn't really matter. You can tear them both apart with the shotgun. Less trivial is the death scythe and death scissors. These are cool fights, if kind of weird. One of them, I forget which, can create these tornadoes that launch Dante up in the air, and to this day, I don't know if these are supposed to hurt or help you. They kind of hurt you because they can mess up your positioning to attack, but they also help you avoid some of their more dangerous attacks. Soon we come to the first boss of the game, Phantom.
What a big surprise. I hope for your sake you got something inside that big body of yours.
There's not that many bosses in this game, but you fight all of them multiple times, with each boss fight being slightly different. Here, Phantom is fairly straightforward, but this fight does help illustrate an important skill in this game that I call behavior baiting. The bosses in this game have a couple of different attacks, and you'll inevitably learn how to dodge and counter certain ones, as well as the ranges at which they're more likely to use these moves. With Phantom, it's pretty easy to bait him into these swiping attacks, which you can then counter with the Stinger. After that, he ambushes you down hallways a few times, and I think I like these moments more than the normal fights with him. He's kind of a mid-boss anyway, but these are fun moments, with a slight twist in that, yeah, you're expected to run away, but you can also pop DT and kill him really quickly.
Finally! I was getting tired of playing your childish games.
A bit later, you have a final bout with him where you can get an alternative win condition by getting him to ass crash on this skylight 5 times. I always love it when games have this kind of thing, but getting it is a rough time, and it's still not as fun as just fighting him normally.
You're right. I'm his son, Dante. Sweet dreams.
Defeated the Phantom. Incredible power.
Sploosh.
Your fate is decided. Everlasting damnation for your sins.
Around this time, we also fight Shadow for the first time. I remember this dude giving me trouble when I first played this game, and there's definitely more stylish ways to fight him, but the best way for me was to get Ebony and Ivory and shoot at it in the air. He'll rarely hit you doing this, and once he's exposed his balls, you can pop DT and wail away on him. Shadow is one of the more fondly remembered enemies from this game, and I definitely get why. This black goo cat monster is a cool concept, and later in the game, when they throw multiple at you, it's a tense fight because even if your shoot dodging is on point, you still need to try and damage the core while looking out for the other shadows. Later on, we find a new weapon, the Ifrit. Slight lore thing is that a lot of the weapons that Dante uses throughout the game contain the soul of a powerful demon. Either they're manifestations of them, or they were forged into it, which is part of why Dante can use them to activate Devil Trigger. The Ifrit are very slow, but wildly powerful gauntlets. And when you pop DT, some of the special moves allow you to overcome the slowness issue. In fact, I was surprised how much the first fist weapons in DMC would resemble what all fist weapons in the series would continue to be. They knew they had a winner here. You can also switch between Alistor and Ifrit on the fly. It's really slow, and if you get hit during this, the switch is cancelled, but it's another piece of what DMC would eventually become. After getting the gauntlets, we fight Griffin.
Son of Sparta who challenges the darkness for this.
Block off, Featherface, or you can stick around and find out the hard way.
Block off, Featherface.
I'll be honest, I don't think I actually know how you're supposed to fight this guy. I try to fight him in melee with Ifrit, but his head is the only vulnerable spot, and only the stomp attack with Ifrit hits that. The thing I always did was equip Ebony and Ivory and shoot at him until he goes down, pop DT with Ifrit, and start making Redgrave style fried chicken. I think you're meant to use these platforms or jump on his back to hit him with Ifrit, but this is just what worked for me. If you like the grenade launcher, this is probably a great place for it as well. But he throws a lot of lightning attacks at you, and I'm just not experienced enough with the grenade launcher to dodge all of this and shoot. So we find an old ghost ship that I think is supposed to be Charon's ship, but shooting a bird and the St. Elmo's fire still feels like a Rime of the Ancient Mariner reference. Anyway, this is also where we have the infamous swimming sections. Now, I'm not going to sit here and defend it, but I am going to say that the developers knew this wasn't great. So they had very little that could hurt you or even slow you down in these sections. They made fighting 8 whole enemies underwater a secret mission. And the amount of time you spend underwater through the whole game, including this side mission, might total 6 minutes. And yet, it's still considered one of the worst things in the game, and I'm inclined to believe them. It's not the worst, but it's pretty bad. Anyway, we fight the Albatross, cast a curse upon the camera and all its descendants forever and ever, and make our way into that Coliseum where we fight Griffin one last time. I do like that he continues fighting after getting an injury. Like with Phantom, it's little things that make a boss memorable. We also get to see Mundus for the first time.
Mighty is the power of Mundus. Master, grant me one last surge of power. The power to finish him. Master, Mundus.
So, in my mind, I cut this game into 4 sections. The first part is mostly the castle. The second part, which we just did, is the island outside of the castle with the Speedwell and the Coliseum. The third part, which I just call the Mirror Worlds, is where we are now. I couldn't tell you where we were or what we were doing if I had a walkthrough. The game gets a lot more linear at this point, and that's a godsend, because I have no idea what's going on. I'm just killing whatever's in my way. We start seeing blades, which I think were a cut enemy from Dino Crisis. They sort of become a foot soldier through the rest of the game because of how many you'll fight at this point. I do like the mechanic of one being much larger and more dangerous, almost like an alpha, but they don't show up as often as you might expect. The last two basic enemies we're introduced to in this game are Frost and Nobodies. They don't show up that often, and when they do, the game doesn't make you fight that many of them. I did enjoy fighting the Frost a bit more, though, just because the Nobodies had acid blood or something that hurt you as they die. During parts 1, 2, and 3, though, we were fighting another boss that I haven't mentioned until now. Nero Angelo. Trust me, they meant to call him Nero Angelo, or Black Angel.
A man with guts and honor. I like that. But it's a shame you serve Mundus.
We'll see this much later, but I feel like when Hideki Itsuno was establishing what Dante's personality would be for DMC3, he watched these cutscenes and said, "Yes, that's Dante." Nero Angelo is designed to be a counterpart to Dante. He also uses a sword, has multiple combos, a down slash, and projectiles. While he's still only my second favorite boss in the game, it is very unique in this game for the personality he shows in the fights. He's cocky, he punishes you for mistakes, and he feels like he uses the environment more than any other. Every other boss fight could work in a Minecraft flat world, but Angelo teleports around to move the fight to a different part of the area. It actually feels like there's rounds to these fights, and he changes the most of any boss between fights. And by the third fight, he then has summon swords, which he uses in a surprising variety of moves. But once we defeat him, we learn something that would end up changing the entire series. Yeah, this was Virgil, Dante's twin brother who disappeared and now a minion of Mundus's. With Virgil finally laid to rest, we retrieve his half of the amulet and use it to bring forth Devil's Sword Sparta. And I barely used it. Why? Because you can't DT with it normally. Yeah, it's this big epic moment and you get a weapon that's weaker than the two weapons you've been using the whole game. Yes, Sparta does a bit more damage than Alastor, but Alastor DT far outpaces Sparta in damage, not to mention air raid. You also don't unlock new moves for it or anything. It comes with the 3 basic combos, Stinger and Round Trip. A move I haven't even talked about until now because no one ever uses it. We do eventually see what the sword can really do, but it's at the end of the game, and until then I just kept using Alastor and Ifrit. But with all this, we leave part 3 of the game and move into part 4, Hell. We're going to the underworld, but before we get there, we have to fight Mundus's last guardian, Nightmare. No, not the weird gun, the demon it was presumably forged from. Nightmare is my favorite boss in the game. It's not as technically interesting as Nero Angelo, and I don't think it made nearly the same kind of impact on the later games, but it's one of the few things in the game that makes me actually curious of the lore of this world. So Nightmare is this gross slime monster, and to kill it you have to activate these rune switches to bring it out, and reveal one of its cores and punch the shit out of it. But as you're fighting Nightmare, it can trap you and take you into a pocket dimension where you have to fight either Phantom, Griffin, or Nero Angelo. Depending on your skill level, this can either be a death sentence or a golden opportunity, since after you kill that boss, Nightmare takes a lot of damage. Very cool mechanic, and I can't think of another time I've seen it done quite this way. As I mentioned before, the reason why I like this boss so much is that it's one of the only times in this entire series that made me interested in the deeper lore. I'm a pretty simple goo man, and while there are parts of the DMC story that interest me, it's mostly the interactions between the main characters. The deeper lore regarding Hell, its politics, and Sparta either change every game or have become so complicated that I stopped caring. You'd think it would be cool to play a game where you see Sparta's side of the story, right? Except how much of that game would be him fucking around with the Hellgates and the Tower of Babel, making the Yamato and the Rebellion, making doors that can only be opened with ancient artifacts and then hiding those artifacts on a pedestal in a room less than 100 yards from the door that it unlocks. All this is to say that I think Nightmare's lore is cool. It was basically a bioweapon created by Mundus to guard the gates of hell. The rune switches are a device designed to contain him, and this pocket dimension is some kind of manifestation of Dante's trauma. Which, maybe that sounds silly, but from what we see of Mundus and how he acts, it makes perfect sense that he would fight Dante using a weapon that feeds off of his pain and trauma. But we were about to kill him when...
You fool! You're so easy.
Trish, you?
What? The crazy bitch who looks like Dante's mom, wears tight black leather, shoots lightning, can fly and teleport is actually a demon? No way!
Dante! Dante, why did you save my life?
Because you look like my mother. Now get out of my sight. The next time we meet, it won't be like this.
Dante!
Don't come any closer, you devil! You may look like my mother, but you're nowhere close to her. You have no soul. You have the face, but you'll never have her fire!
This party's getting crazy. Let's rock.
Yeah, so part 4 of this game could also be called Melodrama. Hellodrama. No, that sucks. But now that we're in hell, I can talk about its aesthetic in this game, and it's all over the place. Its internal organs, its weird mirror dimensions, its cathedrals, its organic cathedrals. The sad part is this game has the best depictions of hell in the series. As in, all 4 of these disjointed aesthetics by themselves are better than any other depiction of hell in the series. Some of which either never show hell or just make it look like a barren wasteland. I really wish they had just stuck with one idea, or at least had been able to make their transitions between these different aesthetics smoother, but I still prefer this interesting mess over making an RPG from the 90s where everything's separated by elements. It's about time I mentioned secret missions too. I have been doing most of them, with a few exceptions. If you're curious, my favorites were Stairway of Tranquility and Hidden Bangle. Hidden Bangle, though, was unlike any other secret mission I've seen in this series. It feels like a hidden level rather than a little side mission to do, and you get a secret item, the Bangle of Time. An item that allows you to use your DT to stop time. Now, this completely replaces your DT, and it can only be used with Alastor and Ifrit. But it's cool that this even exists. And apparently Hideki Kamiya agreed because it's also an item in Bayonetta.
Look there.
Alright, let's just get into it.
How much longer are you going to keep sapping? Come out and show yourself, Mundus!
I really don't like Mission 22. I think it's the worst mission in this game. I think that Mundus is the worst fight in this game by a significant margin. And that's if you would even call it a boss. It starts with a shmup section, which I guess Yoko Taro enjoyed. Except even if it's still very out of place in Nier Automata, those sections are infinitely better quality than whatever the fuck this is. The first issue is that the y-axis is inverted by force. Yeah, this is some boomer shit that thankfully game devs figured out, but back in the day, we didn't have this massive suite of control options to play with. If the game wanted to invert the camera, then tough shit, you had to learn both control schemes. If a game had alternating axes, tough shit, get used to it. And yes, lots of games would throw you in a minigame, which that's what this is. It's a fucking minigame disguised as a boss fight, and they might drastically change how it controls, and there's nothing you can do about it. That's not the only problem with this, but it is the most immediately bad thing. And this is all so you can shoot Mundus with runes? Kanji? Whatever they are, they and most of the assets in this section are messed up, an issue that's even on the PS2 version of this HD collection. The one good thing about this part is DT. Tell me, what do you think popping Devil Trigger in this does? Yeah, we just shoot a dragon at him. After that, he crashes into a volcano? Are we still in hell? Am I going to see Heihachi and Kazuya fighting in the background? Anyway, this part isn't good either, but at least it's short. Pop DT so you can actually hit Mundus, and when you run out, just hit these balls for more power. I'm surprised that this mess of a mission doesn't get talked about more. I hear more about the swimming sections than I do this shit show of a boss fight. Then again, this all prefaces the cutscene. You know the one.
My mother risked her life for me, and now you too. I should have saved you. I should have been the one to fill your dark soul with light!
Wow. It's exactly as bad as I remember. After that, we have that mission in every Resident Evil game where we have to escape the Umbrella Lab before it explodes, except it's hell this time.
The gate has been opened. Dante, you are not getting away. This is where you will die.
I'm not going anywhere! Besides, there's no place to go. Look around! This will be your burial ground as well.
Dante, use my power!
It looks like we have a winner.
Jackpot. Trish!
Dante,
Trish, devils never cry. These tears are a gift only humans have. sky is fair. It'll always be above everyone's head, no different.
Like the sky. I feel like my heart is becoming clear.
I'm going to go vomit. I'll be right back.
Satisfied.
DMC1 starts slow, but by the fourth mission, it's running on all cylinders, and it's great. Right up until the end, where I have to assume they just ran out of time or money. But even if I didn't like the ending, I can't say it ruins the game. But I still didn't come out of this feeling like I could keep playing it. It's fun enough, but the real interest for me comes with knowing its backstory and knowing what this would eventually become. But I've said my spiel, and I hope you'll come by next time.